Hello guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the second in my videos of my favourite top fives. We're doing my top 5 favourite horror films of 1981. I've already done 1980. These videos were inspired by Horror Hands, who did these favourite, the best film of each year, each decade. Like I said, that was too comprehensive for me. I didn't want to go too far into that, so I'm just doing the 80s and I'm doing my top 5 of each year of the 80s. So we've done 81, I mean 80, so now we're going to do 81. And number 5 is a slasher that is sort of like not the renowned to be amazing, but I absolutely adore it. It's got a lot of charm, and it's Madman Mars. I absolutely love this film. It's a typical American slasher in the sort of like in the woodlands sort of setting, you know, not too dissimilar to Just Before Dawn or Friday the 13th. It's that kind of setting, and you've got this madman who's living in there on his own and starts picking off these sort of campers one by one. But it's fantastic. The characters are great. It's extremely cheesy. It has the campfire story bit where they all sit by the campfire, which all these films have. Even films like The Fog and that have campfire stories, and I love that. I think it's fantastic. So number 5, in my favourite sort of top 5 horrors of 1981 is Madman Mars. Number 4 is another slasher. This one is a bit more of a slow burn slasher, but it's absolutely amazing. It's got some really cool kills in it, and it's got a really good sort of like ending, and it's Happy Birthday to Me. This is based at a high school, this one. This time around, it's not based on like a camp or anything. It's at a high school, and there's a certain group of kids that all hang out together, but one by one they all start getting picked off and killed. And the main sort of female character in the film, who's this girl here, Melissa, I think her real name is. She starred in a TV show called Little House on the Prairies. But she's our main sort of lead, and she's got like a story background with her mother, who used to be a bit of an alcoholic, and all this sort of backstory is going on, and she's got a very bizarre relationship with her doctor, psychiatrist, who is played by a very famous actor. Let me have a quick look, see if I can see his name on the back, because I think he normally stars in westerns. Glenn Ford, that's it. So he stars in this, and the story sort of unfolds as it goes along, and there's some great kills in there, and it's got a really twist of an end, which is absolutely brilliant. I think these sort of films, ones with the twists, are the ones that started off things like Urban Legend, you know, films like that came later in the 90s and stuff, because they're very similar to sort of like Happy Birthday to Me, that sort of a group of friends getting picked off one by one, and then who's done it sort of slasher, and it gets revealed at the end. And it is absolutely fantastic, really cool film. It's definitely one of my favourites in the slasher genre, and that is my 4th favourite film of 1981. Third is the classic Gorefest, and it's Sam Raimi's Evil Dead. Let me take that off because that's annoying. Evil Dead. This is the Steelbook edition. Pretty cool. Yeah, not a lot to say about it. The infamous Video Nasty, based on a group of 4. Was it 5? Kids going to a lodge, a cabin in the woods, and they actually stumble across a sort of tape in the cellar, and they play it, and on this tape's got incantations of like that sort of like release the demons that live within the woods, and then they sort of again get picked off one by one and turn into these sort of like demons. And it turns into an absolute gore fest until we're down to the very last guy Bruce Campbell, who went on to make another two of these films, and then also he made a TV series based on the actual Evil Dead. But this one is the classic. It's absolutely fantastic gore in there. It's got some absolutely wacky and silly effects near the end, but it's absolutely fantastic. And it was really quite scary and eerie at the time. And it was really hard to get to watch this back in the day. I watched it on bootleg VHS because I used to have a family. I used to go and visit nearly every day, like friends of the family, and they always used to have all these VHS tapes of bootlegs. You know, they never had any official ones. They're all bootlegs, and that's how I got to see The Evil Dead. And then it got a release on video by Palace Video once it got past that video nasty stage, because they did go to court with this one, and obviously the Palace Video won the case and it got a release. I do think there were some minor cuts taken from it, but now we got the full version of the film, and it's such a good film. It's really, really cool. All the characters are quite well, the two guys are likable. The girls are pretty annoying, especially when they turn into zombies, but they look really convincing and they're quite scary. Yeah. Really cool film though. Evil Dead is number 3 in my favourite 1981 horror films. Number 2 is another slasher. Absolutely fantastic film. It's on par with Friday the 13th, and it's called The Burning. Now this came out the same sort of time really as Friday the 13th, and it is a very, very similar story. It's at a camp, and these kids are getting picked off by this killer called Cropsey. But years before, a bit like in Friday the 13th, where the campers sort of ignored Jason and he drowned, in this one they play a practical joke on him when he's asleep in his sort of like hut, and it sets on fire and he sort of burns, like really disfigured, burned, and he's in hospital for years. And then he comes out and goes back to the camp to seek his revenge. But what's good about this one is like he just doesn't, not just the camp is after, he's after the kids that go to the camp, so they also get killed. This is another infamous video nasty, mostly because of the boat scene, where there's a few sort of like gruesome deaths with fingers being cut off and gardening shears being placed through the chest and all this sort of like wonderful, wonderful stuff. And again, it's a very eerie sort of film, and it's to me it's got more of a 70s feel to it. It just feels like it's in the 70s more than the 80s. But it's such a great film with a sort of really great ending to the film, which could have led to a sequel. I don't think we got a Burning 2, which would have been good. But to be honest, it was fantastic. Absolutely amazing film. It is very similar, though, to Friday the 13th. So if you liked Friday the 13th, this is the more extreme version of it, if you like, because it is a bit more violent and gory. And Cropsey's really cool. So my second favourite film of 1981 is The Burning. So that only leaves one, doesn't it? And it's got to be John Landis's film of American Werewolf in London. It's just fantastic. Absolute classic movie. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen this movie. It's just fantastic. It is definitely the best werewolf film ever made. And this is about two young backpackers that come to England on holiday. They start off in Yorkshire, around this area. It wasn't filmed too far from here, the first part of the film. And they get a bit lost, and they end up going to like the local pub, and the locals there are not too friendly. They're not too pleased to see them. But if you watch it very carefully, you see a couple of famous faces in there. You've got Rick Mayall in there from The Young Ones, and that he's in the bar, and you've also got Brian Glover, the famous British wrestler. He's also in the film, telling them a joke, and there's other sort of actors that have gone on to be established other things. If you saw my review of the slasher film F, which was based in UK school sort of slasher, the head teacher there was also in the bar there. Fantastic. Anyway, they're not too friendly with them, and they end up telling them to leave the pub. And they told them to stick to road, don't go on the moors, stick to the road. But they go wandering off and end up getting on the moors, and then they get attacked by a werewolf, and they end up being taken to a hospital in London. One of them dies, one of them survives. But the one that died sort of comes back as an undead sort of zombie and sort of haunts this the one that's still surviving, telling him he's got to kill himself because he's going to turn into a werewolf. Anyway, that's all the synopsis I can tell you of the film. It's an absolute blinding classic with some great scenes sort of shot in the London Underground in Tottenham Court Road, which go to a number of times. Me and the lad goes to Tottenham Court Road quite a lot because we used to go to Forbidden Planet, which is quite near Tottenham Court Road, and it's that station that American Werewolf was filmed at. And that is my top 5 favourite films of 1981. So we've got American Werewolf in London, my favourite, The Burning, The Evil Dead, Happy Birthday to Me, and Madman Mars. They're my 5 favourite films of that year. So what do you think of that choice? I quite like it. The next video is obviously going to be 1982. Another fantastic year. 81, 82 I think were absolutely fantastic years for the horror genre, especially the slasher film. It's really starting to come into its own then, and we were inundated with loads, and we were inundated with video nasties in this period. But to be honest, I think quite a lot of video nasties were all from the 70s. But I think because in the 70s, I think we were a bit more open-minded back then to sort of things, and just as you get certain people, Mary Whitehouse, that sort of like tries to put her foot down. Oh, can't, and it all changed when the sort of Thatcher government came in, the Conservatives, and they tried to make us all conservative and not like anything that could be disruptive to our children or whatever. But there we go. But it was a great time for the horror movie. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for 1982. Look after yourselves.